News can confirm that 7 power producers have curtailed supply to the national grid, according to Gridco Grid report obtained over the weekend. While the acting managing director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, David Asamoah, admits some plants are down but rejects assertion that there is a crisis. Speaking on Newsfile, he said the unpredictability of the shortages makes it difficult to come up with a load shedding timetable.
Majority of these deaths is as a result of forex shortfall. Each month, forex alone will lose about 37 million on a monthly basis. Getting the dollar becomes a problem. Sometimes you even make payment like what I paid yesterday. It will take sometimes days, weeks before they get it because of the dollar. If it were to be serious, I have paid. I would just say I paid the money. But when you pay, now you have to, the banks will have to get the dollar. The banks will have to get the dollar to convert before they pay. And by the time they convert, if the dollar increases, then it means that you will still have further shortfall. So with the payment, we have an agreement with them now. How it's going to be paid. ECG will be paying part, ministry will come in. Also, and they have had that conversation. Just yesterday, it sent a message that they have agreed with the ministry on their portion. So if the ministry is up, then and I spoke to the ministry, and the ministry has also agreed. So the ministry has also agreed. So the coming days, Sonia said we will be back. Not with.
Well, let's get on Zoom now and speak to Nana Mwezi. He is Executive Director of the Institute for Energy. Thank you so much for your time here on News 6. This is worrying. 7 power producers not producing power to the national grid. Paint a picture for us. How do we plan to then run effectively supply of power?
Well, thanks for having me and good morning to your viewers.
Good morning.
So, if we put Asogli, Amandi, Siemens, and Car Power together, we're talking about close to 1,400 megawatts of power that is lost on the grid. And so it means that there is a deficit, definitely automatic deficit in terms of generation and supply. I just took a look at yesterday's condition sheet of the Gridco, and I found that we produce roughly, even at peak hour, an average of about 3,100 megawatts. It means that it is far below our peak demand of roughly 3,700. And so that gap has to be managed by load shedding. That's what we are seeing, what we're seeing. But then, how do we manage it as consumers? I think we must plan our day. Since they won't produce a timetable, we must plan our day, bearing in mind that at any moment, lights could go off. If you're asking from the direction of consumers, what we must do, then of course, we must have that in mind. But if it's about government, then we will appeal rather to government to engage the IPPs as soon as possible. Because
according to the document, it is indeed. According to the document, Amandi, Kalio Solar, and T66, as well as Car Power, they are currently contributing 0 megawatts to the national grid. The other 3 IPPs, which is Asogli, Bui Solar, and Siemens, we know that unfortunately they are also not producing power. Asogli, we know that is currently facing these challenges because of government's indebtedness to them. I'm just going through the document that before me right now. We know that only last week the IPPs threatened to also curtail supply, and so this is a widespread problem. I recall that the ECG, they went on a revenue mobilization drive, and that hasn't been so effective. So how then do we deal with the problem when to a large extent indebtedness is the problem?
It is good that you appreciate that it is indebtedness that is the problem here. For the utilities, cash flow constraints is also hammering them back in terms of their operations. They are unable to buy the necessary parts as they claim or say to fix plants. They are able to buy the necessary materials to also, let's say, oil and all that to make sure that the systems are running. And so to them, until government collects a substantial amount of the debt owed them, they will be unable to operate. We know car power is lost. They are fixing their valve. But as they tell us, they are not in a hurry to fix their valve. They are rather expecting government to engage them and pay them some substantial part of the debt owed them before election. And so that is what we have.
How do you propose moving forward we deal with some of these issues, especially when the cash waterfall mechanism set aside to enable the effective payment of all these actors in the power line is not as effective as it should be?
Yes, so the immediate step is for government to engage the power utilities to come on board and give us power. The next act you just mentioned, because the problem lies around revenue mobilization and distribution to the utilities, we'll also want to add a voice to what the PRC have asked the ECG to do, to adhere to the cash waterfall mechanism. The letter that comes in ensure that it is fairly and equitably distributed to all the utilities. But most importantly, ensure that you are getting a chunk of your revenue or the expected revenue. Because if you are just collecting half of the expected revenue, it still will not solve the problem, even if you deposit all into the cash waterfall mechanism. And so, in the medium to long term, the inefficiencies in the ECG system must be fixed so that enough of revenue can be generated, and also we must adhere to the cash waterfall mechanism dictate.
Thank you, Nana Mwesi, for your time here on NewsX. He is Executive Director for the Institute of Energy Security.